Hello. Another Shabbos is upon us, and unfortunately, we're still at war. To the contrary, it looks like things are going to heat up in a very major way. And therefore, I think it's worthwhile, although we would just like to share Divrei Torah, sweet Divrei Torah, I think it's important that we continue to discuss the present situation and what we can do. It's only natural that emotion wanes. That is a blessing for the human being. When it comes to tragedy, when it comes to hardship, when it comes to mourning, HaKadosh Baruch Hu built into our very nature that we get used to it, we acclimate ourselves to it, we adapt to it. Otherwise, we would go out of our minds. Reb Chaim Shmulevitz points this out in a very unusual medrash that tells us on the way to the burial of Yaakov Avinu, Esav HaRasha stopped the procession and he started arguing about the burial rites. And there was a give and take, and there was a great discussion. And Naphtali stepped up. He was the fleet-footed one, and he said he was going to run to get back home to get the deed. And they were waiting. And from the back of the crowd, Hushim, the son of Dun, came forth. And he said, so what's going on here? Avi Abba Muto Bibizoyim. My grandfather is lying there in disgrace. His body is rotting. What's the problem? Let's go bury him. They told him, Esau's making trouble. To which the Medrash says, believe it or not, he took out his sword, and that was the end of Esau. Done, finished. No problem. So Reb Chaim Shmulevitz asked the question, why was it left to Hushim ben Dun? Why didn't somebody else step forward? Why didn't somebody else put an end to the shenanigans? And he says so beautifully, Hushim ben Dun was deaf. And therefore, when he stepped forward, this is the first he heard of the incident. Whereas everyone else, as holy and as noble and as good-willed as they were, but they got involved in the negotiation. Esav said, no. What do you mean Esav said, no? Oh, it's my field. What do you, it's my field. I bought it, etc., etc. And it went back and forth. And slowly but surely, everyone in the crowd adapted to the situation. Originally, they were, what do you mean? Esav had a response, and they went back and forth. But not Hushim. Hushim didn't know what was going on until they said, well, we're going to have to wait for Naphtali to come back. He said, excuse me, this is not right. Took the situation into his own hands. Acclimation. We become used to things. And therefore, I'm afraid, even though the war is heating up, even though Jewish boys and Jewish girls are about to go into the hornet's nest, but perhaps things are not so intense. Our prayers are not so intense. Our need to do something is not so intense. It's only natural. How do we counteract this problem? And the answer is activity. We constantly need to be stepping up our game. You know, the famous quote of the Vilna Gaon, who said, somebody who's not growing spiritually is going backwards. Why is that? Why can't somebody maintain the level? So if Aaron Cutler so ingeniously explained, he said a person to grow, to do more, is getting more and more inspired. If you get more inspired, so then you grow. If you remain the same in inspiration, then the feelings deaden, the emotions deaden. So you're either growing or you're going backwards. There's no treading water when it comes to inspiration. And therefore, we have to step up our game. If we came to shul a certain amount of times, we need to be doing it more. If we learned a certain amount of times, a certain amount of hours, a certain amount of minutes, we have to do it more. If we put more into our Shabbos, as we suggested, We have to do it more. Our problem is that we don't have it in front of us. The boys on the front can't backslide. They can't let the morale, they can't let the momentum, they can't let the inspiration, they can't let the focus down. We need to be the same way, as we learned last week. When Klal Yisrael went out to war against Midian, so some went out to the battlefield and some went to the Beis Medrash. Those who go to the Beis Medrash, those who are involved in the 4 action points that we outlined last week, which is tefillah barabim in a group, which is more learning in a group, which is Avas Yisrael, which is giving to others. At this moment, giving to our brothers and sisters in Israel, seeing what we can do to be machazik them, calling up our relatives, sending them things. And of course, Shabbos, which is the cornerstone of our faith, which is the cornerstone of our religion, which is the cornerstone of bringing the geula. We need to consistently step up the game. Let's not backslide. It's going to be a great challenge for us. But there is no room for not being on the war footing, for keeping up, because literally lives are at stake and the future of our people is at stake. Thanks so much for listening. Have a wonderful Shabbos. We should be zocher to see Yeshuos, to see salvations, to see nechamos, to see consolation, to see refuos, to see healing for our people. Have a wonderful Shabbos.